Here are people Sows, Rice Farming Simulator, Shu's Rice Field. I have many nicknames for this banner, but we all agree that this is one of the most anticipated banners of 2024. We got Shu and Zuo as the featured 6-star operators, which took me 151 polls and a crashed emulator to get them both. With the release of these two operators, they sent shockwaves within their respective archetypes thanks to their new and interesting kit. In this video, I want to compare operators from Here People Sows with older operators in the same archetype and rarity to analyze their differences. Later on, I will go over how much the new operators power creep the previous ones and how they shift the meta. Hello, Editing Kevin here. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I can only talk about Shu and Zuo. They will be compared against Saria and Hellagur respectively. So, without further ado, let's get started. Sarya and Shu are both Guardian Defenders, with the ability to heal allies while also acting as a tank. Since these roles are very important in most battles, Guardian Defenders are a strong archetype and are still relevant today. Let's take a brief overview of each of the two operators. Sarya is a Year 0 operator, released at the same time as Arknights open to global players. She is the go-to Guardian Defender for a lot of players, including myself, and dare I say it, the best one in her class in the early days of Arknights. Sorry Gami, Sarya does well in any type of content, be it main story, side story, IS modes, SSS, etc. Sarya's first talent buffs her attack and defense for every 20 seconds she is on the field, stacking up to 5 times. This not only makes her stronger but also improves her healing. At full stack, Sarya caps at about 695 for attack and 852 for defense. Talent 2 turns Sarya into a semi-SP battery. Every operator she heals recovers 1 SP, without the module. However, this SP recovery does not apply to Sarya herself. Sarya's first skill, First Aid, heals allies in a 3x3 range when they are below 50% and can store multiple charges. All Guardian Defenders have this type of quick healing skill for S1, except for Spot. With S2, Sarya's healing range expands into a 5x5 cornerless square and she becomes an AoE healer, healing everyone in her range and doesn't have a minimum HP threshold. S3, classification, is a more specialized skill. Sarya constantly heals all allies in a diamond-shaped range. Enemies in her range increase the amount of arch damage they take and their movement speed is reduced. There are two modules for Sarya. The first one, Guardian X, updates her trait so that she increases her healing amount by 15% on allied units with less than half HP. At higher level, the module improves her second talent, where allied units healed by Sarya recovers 2 SP and 3 SP for Rhinelab operators. Meanwhile, her second module allows her to reduce incoming damage by 15% and improve her first talent. So, in a nutshell, Guardian X makes Sarya into a better healer and support, while Guardian Y makes her a tankier defender. Shu has only been out for about a month as of writing, and no doubt that players have been enjoying her in the rice farming event and reclamation algorithm. Just taking a glance at her talent, she is designed with a focus on healing and support in mind. As shown by her first talent, Shu applies passive HP recovery like Perfumer's talent and damage reduction with the use of Sanctuary. Her second talent applies various buffs depending on the operators in your squad. If there are operators from at least 3 different classes, everyone gains plus 12% max HP. If at least 3 operators are from the same class, everyone gains additional 12 attack speed. If there are at least 4 Sui siblings in the squad, everyone gains a plus 12% attack buff and recovers 1 SP every 4 seconds. The first 2 effects only apply when Shu is deployed, but the third effect works just by having Shu in the squad. Shu and Sarya have identical first skills, with the only difference being the name. But skill 2 is different. When proccing skill 2, Shu focuses on healing your operators, able to block 1 extra enemy, and she gets an attack buff. And finally, skill 3 is Shu's signature skill, in which she teleports enemies in a zone tile, offering a unique method of crowd control. At the time of writing, Shu only has one module, Guardian X, which updates her new trait the same way as Sarya, but at level 3, her passive HP recovery and Sanctuary effect is stronger. Additionally, Shu immediately sewed her own tile on deployment, giving herself constant damage reduction and HP recovery. First, let's analyze how good Sarya and Shu are at being a tank, since that is one of the most essential roles of a defender. Sarya's strength relies on her high defense and talent 1, allowing her to tank physical damage. Out of the 3 6-star guardians, Sarya has the highest defense at E2 level 90, max potential, and max trust, making her the most defensive out of the 3. Of course, there is a limit on how much physical damage Sarya can take, particularly attacks with extremely high damage per hit, like the golems. This might seem like an extreme example, but it helps with the visualization. Without any modules, Sarya is able to tank a few hits from the golem before getting completely overwhelmed. But Sarya can tank significantly more hits by using module Y, which reduces all incoming damage no matter if it's physical, arts, or true damage. Since the damage reduction is a percentage, the higher the DPH, the stronger the effect. On the flip side, thanks to Sarya's abundance of defense stat, it feels like she is invincible when fighting against non-elite enemies. Taking these into consideration, Sarya is designed as a tank first to minimize the need for healing, and when she does need it, it's ready to be used. It sounds counterintuitive at first because the job of tanking hits is mainly done by protector defenders. But with Sarya, you can be more risky and you get a bonus of self-sustain. You don't need to bring a medic, which means you save a slot, and that makes Sarya really useful in contents like CC, where class restrictions can apply. As for Shu, while not having as much defense as Sarya, compensates her lack of defense by having the highest HP out of the 3 6-star guardians, which is more ideal for tanking arts damage in combination with Sanctuary provided by her first talent. Sanctuary is a buff that reduces incoming arts and physical damage, but not true damage. This graph by Dragon GJY illustrates how good the two defenders are at tanking damage. Sarya with her module Y takes the least amount of physical damage and is neck and neck with Shu module X in taking arts damage. Additionally, Sarya X takes less physical damage than Shu X, but starting from DPH 1538, Shu's Sanctuary effect outperforms Sarya's defense buff, and thus, she takes less physical damage. Shu's Sanctuary also made her more resistant towards arts damage than Sarya with both modules equipped. This might change in the future if Hypergriff decided to add module Y for Shu, and when that happens, she might be able to beat Sarya at taking the least amount of physical damage. In addition to being a great tank, Sarya excels at being a healer as well. Her first and second skills are great for clearing daily contents such as main story or event story stages. Both skills have quick cycles and high HPS, suitable for AFK clears. Meanwhile, her skill 3 is used on harder content like CC or SSS, where the slow effect buys you valuable time to take down tough enemies. Thanks to how good Sarya's healing skills are, she became the first operator worthy of the M9 investments for most players. If Sarya is great at tanking damage, Shu is great at healing, and she has a similar role variety with her skills. S1 works the same way as Sarya's, both are excellent AFK tanks and convenient to use. Shu's S2 makes her into a defensive stance with a full focus on healing. This skill offers a lot of HPS that is equivalent to Aya Alter skill 3, but only heals 2 operators at a time. Unfortunately, S2 feels lacking in some areas. It tries to have the quick cycle like S1, and an attack on heal mechanic similar to S3. When I was testing the skill, the slower cycle of S2 makes it harder to provide a reliable source of healing. You can bring a medic to cover the downtime, but that feels unnecessary. Similar to Sarya, Shu's S3 also has a crowd control element. The big difference here is that Shu's S3 has a shorter cycle than Sarya's, sitting at 34:45 at M3 compared to Sarya's 30:80 also at M3. Sarya's S3 requires you to be more strategic, while Shu can spam her skill 3 rather quickly, especially if you fulfill the third condition of her talent 2, and that allows you to recover 11 SP at Mastery 3. In comparing Shu and Sarya, they both have similar roles, but each of them have different approaches on how to fulfill their role as a Guardian Defender. Sarya embodies the classic Guardian Defender, being very tanky and also have decent healing, while Shu brings a fresh perspective to the class with her new teleport ability. Shu does power creep Sarya when it comes to healing, but Sarya still has a lot of unique features that maintains her value. Sarya is tankier, more resistant to physical damage, and has an arts amplifier and better SP generation without needing 4 limited operators to use it, which some of you might not have. The Musha class had been renamed to Solo Blade with the release of Zuo Le. They are designed to duel with enemies. They cannot be healed externally, instead they recover their own HP by attacking enemies, or through passive HP recovery like Sculptor or Perfumer's Talent. Solo Blade revolves around the tenacity mechanic, where the operator gains bonus stats proportional to the percentage of HP lost, usually at 70% at Elite 2. Our first operator in question, Hellagur, has tenacity for his attack speed. In other words, his attack speed gets better when he loses 70% of his HP. Hellagur's talent 2 allows him to regenerate HP when not blocking, which seems counterintuitive to the archetype, but we'll get to that later. Hellagur's skill consists of 1. A quick cycle, offensive auto-trigger skill that attacks twice, 2. Burst skill that gives him physical dodge and allows Hellagur to attack twice, and lastly, a multi-target burst skill that extends his range. Hellagur also comes with 2 modules. The X modules updates his traits so that he receives Sanctuary when he's below 50% HP, and improves his first talent, making him fast as fuck. Module Y prevents Hellagur from dying and recovers a third of his HP, which is a similar mechanic to Blaze's first talent, and this only applies once per deployment. After almost a year since the last Solo Blade, Zuo Le was added to the family. He brings a new heir to the Solo Blade archetype with his incredible kit. In his first talent, Zuo Le's tenacity includes SP recovery, encouraging him to proc his skill much more often. His second talent gives him 75% chance to recover 1 SP if he's below 50% HP. Zuo Le's first skill is a quick cycle, auto recovery, and auto trigger multi-strike skill. If he's below 50% HP, his attacks strikes 2 additional times. This skill also holds charges, which means his attacks can strike a maximum of 9 times if all of them are spent in one go. Skill 2 is a manual HP reduction skill that gives him an extra block, an attack buff, and a barrier that stacks up to 2 times his max HP. The barrier gradually depletes after the skill ends. Lastly, Zuo Le's skill 3 performs 7 frontal strikes, dealing massive physical damage up to 3 enemies. He also gets a barrier that lasts for 15 seconds. At the time of writing, Zuo Le only has the X module, which gives him Sanctuary and improves his second talent to give him better SP recovery. Solo Blades reach their best dueling capacity at low HP, but this is risky and it makes them really hard to use. If the enemy is too hard, the operator can't keep up, but if the enemy is too easy, they will not be able to fight at that peak performance. This is the problem I'm facing with Hellagur. And on top of that, he can't cycle his skills fast enough, except for skill 1, so sometimes he struggles against enemies with high DPH. Hellagur's second talent makes him a really great self-sustaining unit, but I feel like this is a missed opportunity where he could have a skill that manually removes 50% of his HP. Then use talent 2 to replenish his HP quickly to prepare for the next enemies. Hellagur's limitations kinda leaves him in a fairly narrow range of targets that is ideal for him to duel with. Zuo Le brings a major facelift to the Solo Blade archetype. He fixes some of the major issues that were present with Hellagur. First, the slow skill cycle. Zuo Le's talents give him so many opportunities to gain SP that his kills are spammable despite them costing at least 20 SP. Using his skill 3 for example, the downtime for this skill is about 5 to 8 seconds, and a total of 7 to 10 seconds cycle time, assuming he's attacking full time and he has max tenacity. For comparison, Hellagur's skill 3 has a cycle time of 50 seconds, 5 times longer than Zuo Le. The short downtime feels like you're using a power strike skill, where in that kind of skill you have a offensive recovery and very cheap SP cost too. Next to the survivability aspect of this archetype, Hellagur uses his talent 2 to give himself HP recovery. Zuo Le uses a barrier that gives him solid protection while still being at low health, allowing him to take advantage of his tenacity much easier. When skill 3 is activated, instead of gaining 70 points for his own HP, Zuo Le gains 210 points for his barrier. He should be able to gain 4,410 barriers if he successfully landed all 7 strikes to 3 enemies. And on top of that, since skill 3 stuns, that buys Zuo some time to get back some of his SP, and with some careful timing, can be used to animation cancel enemy attacks. It's more reliable and consistent than dodge. I also want to point out that Zuo skill 2 gives him the option to become somewhat of a lane holder, giving him 1 extra block and much lower maintenance than skill 3, which is something that is lacking with Hellagur. The barrier plays an important role here, just like skill 3, ensuring Zuo's survivability even at low HP. This skill is great for clearing daily stages where there are less elite enemies and for when dueling is not a priority. And thus, skill 2 makes Zuo quite flexible in stages that has class limitation. When comparing the 2 guards together, their damage numbers are interesting. In terms of DPH, Zuo is the clear winner. He does have a higher base attack, beating Hellagur by 18 points. However, since Hellagur has ludicrous amounts of attack speed buffs, his DPS is overall higher than Zuo, assuming they are both operating at max tenacity. Despite having this much DPS, it's hard to put it to use when Hellagur can't use his skill as frequently as Zuo, so it's hard for me to justify using Hellagur in certain stages. The Solo Blade Guards is still one of the most difficult archetypes to use. With the release of Zuo, we get to see what a proper Solo Blade could do if done correctly. Some players even consider Zuo a great example of power creep because he essentially fixed the existing flaws that were present in previous Solo Blade Guards. The operators from Here People Sows are amazing, especially Shu and Zuo. Shu's teleportation is really fun to use and opens up a whole new possibility of strategies. At first, I was worried about how severe the power creep in this banner would be. It is inevitable when you are introducing new operators, and it's a matter of how much overlap the new operators have with the existing operators. Fortunately, it's not as bad as I thought. In fact, it had an overall positive impact, as weird as that sounds, thanks to Zuo, who single-handedly revived the Solo Blade archetype. Moving forward, I predict that there would be a considerable shift in the meta. And just for a quick disclaimer, I don't follow the CN stuff very closely. I rarely access Bilibili. This is purely my opinion. Now, with that being said, we'll definitely see more of Shu in the future in contents like RA, CC, and IS game modes, where operator roster is limited. She won't necessarily be replacing Sarya because 1, Shu is a limited operator and not everyone pulled for her, and 2, both her and Sarya have quite distinct roles and they don't really overlap that much. Solo Blades might make a comeback with Zuo being prominent in high-risk CC, IS, and perhaps niche knights clears. And that concludes this video analysis. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below about the new operators. Do you like them? What do you not like about them? And did you get Shu in her banner? I'll see you next time.